Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Tonight marks the eve of the 19th of the holy month of Ramadan. Inshallah, we are commemorating the first of the three Majlis of the Martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Our program tonight will comprise of the recitation of the Noble Quran by Brother Ahmad Dosani. Then we will have a recitation of poetry by Brother Razi Hussain. And of course, tonight's Majlis will be recited by Hujjatul Islam, Shaykh Reza Hemyari. We will now begin our Majlis. I would like to request Brother Ahmad Dosani to please come forward for the recitation of the Noble Quran. Let's welcome him with a loud salawat.
صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود. قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود. وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد. إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار ذلك الفوز الكبير. إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدئ ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد. هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط. بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. صدق الله العظيم. English translation. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. By the heaven possessed of constellations, by the promised day, by the witness and by the witnessed, perish the people of the trench, the fire abounding in fuel, above which they sat, as they were themselves witnesses to what they did to the faithful. They were vindictive towards them only because they had faith in Allah, the ever-mighty, the ever-praiseworthy, to whom belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and Allah is witness to all things. Indeed, those who persecute the faithful men and women, and then do not repent, for them there is a punishment of hell, and for them there is the punishment of burning. Indeed, those who have faith and do righteous deeds, for them will be gardens with streams running in them. That is the supreme success. Indeed, your Lord's seizure is severe. It is indeed He who originates and brings back again. And He is the ever-forgiving, the ever-affectionate. Lord of the throne, the ever-glorious, doer of what He wills. Did you receive the story of the hosts of Pharaoh and Thamud? Rather, the faithless dwell in denial, and Allah besieges them from all around. Rather, it is a glorious Quran inscribed in a preserved tablet. Salawat.
Jazakallah Ahmad for his Sahid and Salam Deen Khair Barakat. Let us all recite a loud salawat. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I would now like to request Brother Razi Hussain to please come forward for his recitation of poetry. Let's welcome him with a loud salawat.
Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Farewell, Haydar. I'm Zainab, your daughter. Life has no meaning without you, for you were my joy as I grew. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Just yesterday I had witnessed you cry and mourn for my mother, and here today with sorrow I say that I shed tears for your father. If only I could take back time to the moment of that prayer, as you said Allahu Akbar whilst praying in the mosque of Kufa. I will place my head near your head as Ibn Muljam yields out his sword and close the wound from where you bled with my hands as you meet your Lord. How could they dare to strike your head, Ali? Have they no fear of Judgment Day, Ali? Your absence has broken my heart. I thought nothing takes us apart. Your absence has broken my heart. I thought nothing takes us apart. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Farewell, Haydar. I'm Zainab, your daughter. Life has no meaning without you, for you were my joy as I grew. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. The orphans ask from dawn till dusk, where has Haydar Ali gone? They all cry out with broken hearts, when will Haydar Ali come? And like them I cry out, Father, along with Hassan and Hussein, who will extinguish our fire. Our lives filled with so much pain, the pain of your wound and poison, and the absence of your embrace. They call me Zainab the orphan. Ya Ali, all of this I face. How could they kill God's best of creation? They waited until you went in prostration. With the sword that struck your head, I wish it were me instead. With the sword that struck your head, I wish it were me instead. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Farewell, Haydar. I'm Zainab, your daughter. Life has no meaning without you, for you were my joy as I grew. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Farewell, Haydar. Farewell, O my father. Salawat.
MashaAllah, Razi, that was a very heartfelt recitation. For his Sehat and Salamti and Khair Barakat, let us all recite 8 loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, now as we turn towards tonight's lecture, I will ask you a couple of just logistical items. If you wouldn't mind, please double checking your cell phones to ensure that they are on mute or at least on vibrate. And also for the brothers, when I ask for Maulana to come forward, if you could please move forward as much as possible. And so with that, it is my privilege to kindly request Hujjatul Islam, Shaykh Reza Hemyari, to please come to the minbar at this time. Let us all stand and move forward as we welcome him with a loud salawat.
For your own marhumin and the marhumin of the rest of the community, please recite a Suratul Fatiha masbughatan bis salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين إنه خير ناصر ومعين. ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، سيما بقية الله في الأراضين وحجته على الخلق أجمعين. واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. Dear brothers and sisters, elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have been discussing these past few nights some of the stories of the Quran, stories that we are trying to draw not just some ethical insights, some moral teachings from, but also so that we can orient ourselves towards the rest of God's creation, and ultimately as well see our place in terms of God's creation and the hierarchy that God has placed in His world. See where we fit in the rest of His creation. Many of us have different potentials, different capabilities, and each of those capabilities, Allah has created a place for each and every one of us in terms of that potential. And thinking about it in that way, then we understand that, sometimes I have a potential in my soul and somebody else has a greater potential. And someone else might have a lesser potential or a lesser ability. And so part of my struggle in orienting myself in terms of God's creation is to try to find my place in that chain of being, in that hierarchy that Allah has placed in His earth and created in His creation. And that is where I think one of the greatest insights in this ayah of Allah, of the Quran comes, where Allah says to His angels, إِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. That Allah said to His angels that I will create in my creation on the earth a Khalifa, a successor. Before we enter and start talking and discussing about the verse itself, I'd just like to mention that many of the different parts of the Quran, there are some ahadith that divide up the Quran into different parts and different segments. There is one hadith that says, some ahadith say, for example, that the Quran is divided into 3 different parts, some into 4 different parts, and so on and so forth. We have different ahadith. One of those ahadith is by our 5th Imam, Imam Abi Ja'far Muhammad ibn Ali alayhi salam, in which the Imam says, نزل القرآن أربعة أرباع, that the Quran was revealed in 4 different segments, 4 different parts. ربع فينا, one part is about us. وربع في عدونا, and a second quarter or second part of the Quran is about our enemies. وَرُبُعٌ سُنَنٌ وَأَمْثَالٌ, and a third part is about the sunan of Allah and the different analogies, the different parables that Allah has set for His creation and for humankind. وَرُبُعٌ فَرَائِض وَأَحْكَامٌ, and the fourth part is about the fara'id, the requirements, the laws, the sacred responsibilities that we have towards Allah. Now, when we look in the Quran, a lot of times, and maybe even for most of us, we won't be able to decipher well, how is this verse talking about the Ahlul Bayt? Where exactly does this verse refer to, for example, Imam Ali? A lot of times, they call it a Shia crime, right? When you look in ahadith, it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek type of thing. But if you look in ahadith, they will say, for example, that this verse, it's talking about, for example, Imam Ali. Or this verse is talking about the wilaya of the Imams. And this verse is talking about the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt. And it's not quite clear to us, at least on the surface, how we make that connection. How is it that a fourth of the Quran is about the Imams and a second quarter of the Quran is about their enemies? And the Imam sets the other parts aside as well. Some of our mufassirun, when explaining this, they will point to a hadith that present the Ahlul Bayt in terms of a universal principles, universal virtues that apply to every single human being. Again, we're thinking about the potential that humans have within their souls. When we read this verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah number 30, where Allah is referring to as His Khalifa, His representative, in terms of human beings, that Allah is going to create a creature and place him on this earth with a certain potential that is going to far surpass even the angels that He has created. And so when the Ahlul Bayt, they describe the Quran, they're not just describing it in terms of the superficial aspects, but they're also describing it in terms of underlying principles and an underlying potential that is present in all human beings. In a way, we can think about it as a type of Quranic humanism. We hear about humanism a lot, or at least we used to, until we saw the ugly side of human beings. Humanism is a very widespread idea that took on form in the modern period. This idea that humans are exceptional. Humans are the center of the universe. Humans have this great potential to not just think and not just manipulate God's creation. They might even take out God from the equation, but that the rest of God's creation, the rest of this world should serve and should be a tool for the success and the betterment of humankind. This is one way of expressing humanism, human exceptionalism. That human beings are at the center of the universe and everything else should serve to better humankind. And of course, that survived, that type of approach and orientation towards Allah's creation, that has continued until this very day. A lot of the different ideologies that we hear about, a lot of them are based on this idea of humanism. Now, this is called humanism. It's supposed to be a universal idea, but when in implementation, when we see it applied in our societies, this is not something that every human can enjoy. A lot of times when we think about the resources that are allocated to different societies, these resources are allocated in unequal ways. So at one time, Western Europe would take the resources from all of their different colonies, all of the different parts of their empire, and they would bring it back to the center of the empire. Think about the way that Great Britain rose in history. From a small island, it goes and colonizes different places in the world, brings all of the resources back to the center of the colony, the center of the empire, and the center becomes more and more prosperous, whereas the colonies become weaker and weaker. Millions and millions of people are destroyed and killed. Industries are destroyed so that the center of the empire can succeed. In reality, this type of humanism, it prioritizes a select group of people. And you don't have to look that far. You don't have to look 200 years ago or even 100 years ago. This type of liberalism, humanism that sometimes we see is also the same type of ideology that says that my culture and my tribe is more important, and the lives of my people is more important than the lives of any other tribe or any other nation. And so I am willing to consider you a human, but you are only a subhuman. You are a second-class human when your interests come in conflict with my interests. This is one approach to humanism. The second approach, in the face of this really ugly and selfish ideology, we have nowadays when people don't even think about human beings as being special. We are one amongst the many other animals and creatures that we find around ourselves. What is it that makes me any different, gives me any special status when I compare myself to animals? What is it that separates me from the rest of God's creation? And so some people, they fall into this other ideology, that there is nothing that makes me exceptional. Human exceptionalism has created so much chaos and has brought the earth almost to its destruction because human beings think they're so special. You think about the environment, you think about human society, you think about all the wars that just in these last few decades human beings have wrought on this earth. And then you think about the question that the angels asked Allah. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء. Are you going to set on the earth a creature, a being, who is going to just corrupt the earth, and he's going to spill blood? وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِكَ وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. Whereas we angels, we praise you, O Allah. We repeat your praise, and we sanctify ourselves for you. So you think about this dialogue between Allah and the angels. On the one hand, the angels are seeing the potential in human beings for how much evil they can bring to bear on this earth. And so you might think that human beings actually are not very exceptional. They are an evil people. They are an evil creature. And so they are not worthy of being the Khalifa of Allah on the earth. But when we look at Islam, and in particular the school of the Ahlul Bayt, we see that there is a place given to humankind. That humankind is considered the Khalifa of Allah, and rightfully so. But it is not every individual human being who causes that evil and that corruption. Sometimes we human beings can be so evil that we fall below even the animals and the beasts that roam the earth. Summun bukmun umyun. These people are deaf, dumb, and they do not think, they do not reflect. They are worse sometimes than the beasts that only think about themselves and only think of their own betterment. That is on the one hand. If a human being does not live up to their potential, then this creation is not, on all of the evil that they bring to bear, is not worthy of that evil. The equation does not add up. But then on the other hand, Allah says that there are a certain number of people human beings have the potential, and if they actualize that potential, then they can reach a certain height that makes all of the evil that other human beings can bring to bear, it makes all of that evil worth and worthy of their position. And this is where the position of the Ahlul Bayt becomes that much more important. That they are the reason why Allah has set humankind in this exceptional status. And it is their attributes and their being that makes the difference for all of us. And it is our task to orient ourselves in terms of where we fall in relation to the Ahlul Bayt. I just want to mention this one hadith of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam. Where the Imam says, and this is the night of Amirul Mu'mineen, the Imam is asked that why is it that Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam, is considered, Sallu ala Muhammad wa why is it that he is considered Qasimul Jannati wan Nar? Imam Sadiq responds, because لأن حبه إيمان وبغضه كفر. And the Imam responds, he says that his love, the love of Imam Ali, is Iman itself. It is faith and belief. And hating Amirul Mu'mineen, na'udhu billah, is kufr. And in fact, heavens and the hellfire have been created for those who love Amirul Mu'mineen and those who hate him. Then the person responds, he says, well, why is that? He says, specifically he asks, so when the Quran talks about the people of Iman who came before, the prophets that came before the Prophet of Allah, do they also believe in Amirul Mu'mineen? He says, of course. The Imam responds, of course. Not only did they believe in Amirul Mu'mineen, but they loved him. يُحِبُّونَهُ وَأَعْدَاءَهُمْ كَانُوا يُبْغِضُونَهُ. That not only did their followers love Amirul Mu'mineen, but their enemies hated Amirul Mu'mineen. Why is that? The Imam says, have you not heard the hadith of the Prophet of Allah on the day of Khaybar? That the Prophet says, لَأُعْطِيَنَّ الرَّايَةَ, I am going to give the flag, the standard of my army, to a man, يُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَيُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. That this flag, the person who is going to bear the flag of my army, is going to be a person who loves Allah and His Prophet, and Allah and His Prophet also love him. A very famous hadith. A hadith that has been mentioned by by the different schools of thought in Islam. The Imam continues, that he says, have you not heard the hadith that Allah sends down a manna from heaven to the Prophet of Allah, a bird that has been now roasted and has now been given to the Prophet. And the Prophet says, "O Allah, will you send to me a person who I can have this food with? رَجُلًا يُحِبُّهُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَيُحِبُّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ." A person who the Prophet and Allah love him, and he loves the Prophet and Allah. The Imam says, now to the person who is asking the question, do you think a person will be able to enter into the heavens that Allah has promised, that paradise that Allah has given? A person who does not love Allah or His Prophet, and that Allah and His Prophet do not love him. In other words, the person of Amirul Mu'mineen, the way that we can reach the good graces of Allah is by this relationship of love that we can have with Amirul Mu'mineen. And this relationship of love is not simply a relationship which is focused on the person of Amirul Mu'mineen, but that potential that Allah has placed in the Imam and in all of the other Imams, that other prophets and other people before even Amirul Mu'mineen came to this earth, they as well would recognize. If a prophet who has oriented himself towards the truth and towards Allah, and that which Allah loves, he is faced with Amirul Mu'mineen, then he will as well love that Imam. And if a person has disoriented themselves away from that truth and what Allah loves, then when they are faced with Amirul Mu'mineen, when they are faced with that criteria of what Iman and Kufr is, then they will turn away as well. And so the Imam says, whenever you're reading the Quran, you can think about Iman and Kufr as being embodied in the person of the Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Let's come back to the verse of Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah mentions, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I'm going to create for and on my earth a Khalifa. Now there is a debate amongst the different Mufassirun as to what is this Khalifa referring to. This is a Khalifa of Allah. Some people used to say, some of the Mufassirun would say that this Khalifa is mentioned in a general form. It's not, doesn't say that in the verse, if you look in the verse, it doesn't say the Khalifa of who? Khalifa meaning a representative or a successor. Some people said that maybe this is the Khalifa of the angels, because according to some ahadith, the angels were the ones who would run the affairs of the earth. Some people said, according to some other ahadith, that these are the Khalifa of the people and the beings who used to live before humankind and Nabi Adam was brought to this earth. So these are successors to the people who came before. But when we look in the verses, some of our Mufassirun, they say that this is in fact the Khalifa of Allah Himself. We're thinking about what are those attributes? Why is it that Allah loves Amirul Mu'mineen and the people who He sets as His Khalifa? According to this set of Mufassirun, they say that in fact Allah is referring to His own Khalifa. A Khalifa is who is going to represent Himself. Now the question here becomes, and you can kind of glean this and understand this from the rest of the verses. When Allah says that I am going to Allama Adama asma'a kullaha, that Allah teaches Nabi Adam the names of all of these things. Now it doesn't specify what those things are. And then Allah turns towards the angels and says, what does He say? He says, now you tell me the names of these things. And the angels can't respond. If in fact the Nabi Adam was the Khalifa of the angels, then there has to be some correlation and correspondence between Nabi Adam and the angels. Whereas we see that Nabi Adam has precedence, he is greater, he knows certain things that even the angels don't. So he can't really be a successor or representative of the angels. He is going to supersede and surpass the angels themselves. And so Allah, He teaches Nabi Adam. He trains him and He gives him a certain knowledge about His creation that even the angels don't have. In other words, Nabi Adam in a way reflects the attributes and the characteristics of Allah Himself. And this is the crucial point. Brothers and sisters, when we think about our potential as a Khalifa of Allah, we're thinking about a potential as in a way having divine attributes that Allah has placed within humankind. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. And one of those attributes is by figuring out the different ways that we can deal with and we can approach the rest of God's creation in a way where we represent Allah in all of His attributes, both in His compassion and His mercy, but also in His justice. And this is one of the places where the beauty of a story comes in. That Allah deals with His creation. We talk about Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Comprehensive Rahmah. This is usually how they distinguish between Rahman and Rahim. Rahman refers to a comprehensive mercy, compassion. And then Rahim refers to a specific type of compassion that Allah has towards specific individuals who are select, people who are special amongst His creation. That's Rahman, in a sense. It is Allah's beneficence and His blessings and His barakat that He gives to each and every one of us in all of the different parts of our lives. When we think about a story, we're thinking about a context that changes or certain ethics that are context specific. Right? When we think about, for example, a story that we tell, I see the energy levels. Maybe it is late at night and we've just had iftar. I'll try to end it quickly. But we have stories, right? Stories give us a context-specific sort of teaching. If we put ourselves in the position of those different characters, then sometimes we might decide in one way versus another. And that's one of the benefits of telling stories, is that you can sort of figure out, it's kind of open-ended. You can be creative in how you respond. There's a story of a lion. You don't mind if I tell a story? You sure? Okay. I found lions and foxes and so on were very popular the other day. So I will tell another story about a lion. And you can think about how you would respond if you were in the place of these characters. A lion, it is said, demanded the daughter of a woodcutter in marriage. He wanted to marry the daughter of a woodcutter. The father of this daughter was unwilling to grant this lion his daughter's hand in marriage. And yet, he is a lion, right? So you can't really just refuse a lion. So he decided that he would try to figure out a way to kind of get out of this situation. We're thinking about what would we do. This man, this father, for any fathers out there who are, who have a lion as their suitor of their daughter, he expressed his willingness, this father, to accept the lion as the suitor of his daughter, but only under one condition. That the lion, this kind of lion that had fallen in love, he would allow the father, or maybe he would do this himself, he would extract his own teeth, cut off his claws, and why? Because the daughter was afraid of both claws and teeth. Okay? Sharp teeth, not just regular teeth. And the lion, of course, because he was in love, he really cheerfully and enthusiastically agreed. But when, of course, you have a toothless, clawless lion, nobody's going to be afraid. And when he comes back to the father pushes him aside and he says, "You are no match for my daughter." So when we're thinking about what's the moral of that story, right? What would I do in that position? The idea is that when you tell a story, you have different priorities that you have to figure out. You have different principles and morals that you have to balance and priorities that you have to balance against each other. On the one hand, you are afraid. You're not sure what to do in this situation. On the other hand, you have to be protective, for example, of your daughter. You have to figure out what is the best way to get out of this situation. Sometimes we think about our principles, our moral and ethical teachings in very absolute terms. In other times, we think about them in relative terms. We have to figure out what is the priority that we have to set. And this is one of the most beautiful aspects of the lives of the Ahlul Bayt and in how they express them to us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. That we're not just dealing with principles, universal principles that apply in every situation. Tonight is one of the nights of Qadr. When we're thinking about what and how we should spend this night, this is a night of worship, of devotion, of reflection, of Quran, of salat, of dua, all of these things, and the night yet is limited. What should I do? How should I spend this night? One of the ways that our ulama teach us for how to spend the limited amount of time that we have, on the one hand, there is a hierarchy of things that we can do. So there are certain teachings that say, for example, do these set of du'as, read these set of verses, and so on and so forth. So we can take that as one data point. But then I should also look internally and see, well, what is the type of thing that I really lack in? Maybe throughout the entire month of Ramadan, I've been really good at reading the Quran every single day. And maybe, in particular in our culture, we pay a lot of attention to, for example, reading the translation. I read the Quran every day, but then I only get to, Surah Baqarah, ayah number 30. Or the speaker only focuses on Surah Baqarah, ayah number 30. Yeah? Part of my task then, on a night like this, is to go above and beyond, to fill in the gap in my worship that I don't get the opportunity to do in other moments and other times. So if I don't do salat, if I'm not accustomed to doing salat, then maybe I should spend more time doing salat on this night. If I'm not familiar with the du'as of the night of Qadr, then maybe I should spend the time tonight in doing the du'as of Laylatul Qadr. It's also recommended to spend this time, this night, in discussion and in learning. But if I find myself that I'm always discussing and I always have these chai chats and these group gatherings and so on and so forth, yeah, that's a good thing. Maybe you can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes hanging out with your friends, learning something from them, but then spend the rest of the night in doing other acts of worship. Figure out what is missing in my life of worship and then try to fulfill that and fill that on this night. دواؤك فيك وما تبصر وداؤك منك وما تشعر. This is a poem attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam. The Imam, it is reported, he says that the Imam says that the medicine, the panacea to your illness, you can find within. And the illness as well is also in you. even though you might not know it. In other words, we have to be our own doctors and our own tabib. We have to figure out what is missing in my life. That is on a personal level. When we think about the Khalifa of Allah, we said that the Khalifa and the representative of Allah, he masters and comprehends and consists of all of the different attributes that Allah has mentioned about himself. He is merciful. He is similar in that sense. He can represent Allah in the sense that he is compassionate, but he is also just. He can set the priorities for Allah's creation. And this is one of the, nowadays we're talking about, fuqaha and the wilayat faqih and so on and so forth. One of the tasks of the fuqaha, according to our ulama, is that a proper faqih has to be able to determine what are the priorities that their community has to face and what the priorities are that the community has to appreciate and fulfill. Even if it's for a non-Muslim society. One of the tasks of a proper faqih, a proper mujtahid, is that they have to figure out, well, what are the circumstances? And do the circumstances require a different thing now than they did during the Prophet's time? You think about, for example, economics. Labor and labor's relationship to management is very different from the way it was 1,400 years ago, when it was a pre-industrial society. Now it's an industrial society. We have to figure out, well, what are the subjects that we have to deal with in law? Let's come to the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen himself. What were the priorities that he set for the Muslim community? On the one hand, we have our personal level. On the other hand, we have our contemporary level. And now we look at Amir al-Mu'mineen. We see that Amir al-Mu'mineen, on the one hand, he considered himself, rightfully so, as the successor of the Prophet of Allah. In many different places, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he made this claim. Whoever doubts this fact, that Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali believed that he was the successor of the Prophet, then he just has to read Nahj al-Balagha. There are many different instances in which Amir al-Mu'mineen, he asserts his position. There's this very famous khutbah al-Shaqshaqiyya in which Amir al-Mu'mineen says that I saw my inheritance. I saw that all of those teachings of the Prophet of Allah being now squandered by one so-called Khalifa or another, by one self-proclaimed successor of the Prophet or another. Some of them would harm by pulling the reins of this Khilafat. He gives the example or the metaphor of a camel. Some of them would pull the reins too strong, and some of them would let the reins go. And Imam Ali describes this as, he saw all of this happening, all of the teachings of the Prophet of Allah being forgotten and being set aside, while it was as though he had a thorn in his eye and a piece of bone in his throat. It was difficult for him to bear, in other words. In another hadith mentioned in Nahj al-Balagha, just trying to give sort of a sense of how strongly Amir al-Mu'mineen felt about his position. He says, wa ajabah, when people come and declare their position in relation to the Khilafat, he says, wa ajabah, they think that they are now true successors of the Prophet because they are part of Quraysh. Atakunu al-khilafa bis-sahaba, these people who said, we are Quraysh, we are the Sahaba of the Prophet, and so we deserve it, the Khilafat. وَلَا تَكُونُوا بِالصَّحَابَةِ وَالْقَرَابَةِ, whereas I am a close kin of the Prophet, and I had the closest companionship to the Prophet. You claim something, I can trump your claim in any day of the week. Amirul Mu'mineen would trump all of these individuals. So this is a claim that Amirul Mu'mineen never relegated or forgot about. But then we look at other responses and interactions that Amirul Mu'mineen had during the khilafat of some of the previous khulafa. If it were me and someone took away my right, I would say, the heck with this community. Forget them. They don't want to give me my rights. They can do whatever they want. But then on the other hand, we have Amirul Mu'mineen. He interacts with these individuals and the community in a way where he even supports and advises the community so that the community can prosper. In one very beautiful hadith of Nahj al-Balagha, this is khutbah number 144. The second Khalifa, and I will end here. The second Khalifa, he comes and asks Amirul Mu'mineen Imam Ali. He says, should I go and be the commander of the army that goes and fights against the Persians? The Persians, the Iranians of that time, the Sassanids. If it were any one of us, we would say, go out, fight, whatever happens, happens, have tawakkul and so on and so forth. And then as soon as something happens to him, then we'll go and take charge. The Imam says, rather, that stay back. You, as the leader of the Muslims, should not go lest your life is placed in danger, or the honor and the prestige of the Muslims is brought down. فَكُنْ قُطْبًا وَاسْتَدِرْ الرَّحَى بِالْعَرَبِ وَأَصْلِهِمْ دُونَكَ نَارَ الْحَرْبِ فَإِنَّكَ إِنْ شَخَصْتَ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَرْضِ انتقضت عليك العرب من أطرافها. The Imam says you should be the pivot, you should be the center that spins them, the center that controls the army like grain in your mill. Have them, your army, go and take charge and put their lives on the line. Have them go and brave the fires of war instead of you. If you leave the region, if you leave your base, then the Bedouins, these Arab, will come and swoop in, and they will take charge. And then, if you go out and you fight, then these enemy soldiers, they will say that, look at these Muslims, and look how weak they are. This is something that is very relevant to our time today as well. When we see the different enemies at the gates, on the one hand, we have the people who are trying to destroy the Muslim Ummah in general. On the other hand, we have a conflict internally amongst the Muslims. We should be able to prioritize and defend the Ummah of the Prophet. Prioritize and defend this environment and this context, this culture and this civilization that is our inheritance from the Prophet. Once we have defeated the enemies from outside, then we can defeat or we can resolve our conflicts within. And this is something that in all of our different contexts we can apply a teaching from the life of Amirul Mu'mineen himself. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Let us turn our hearts and our minds towards Kufa. This is a night which was difficult for all of the Ahlul Bayt, a night that the Prophet of Allah had prophesied to Amirul Mu'mineen himself. Amirul Mu'mineen, for the many years after the death of the Prophet. During the life of Rasulullah, he would look to the Prophet to gain courage and confidence. He was always by the side of the Prophet of Allah. But as soon as the Prophet leaves this world, it is said that Amirul Mu'mineen, one after another, the trials and the difficulties befall him. Only a few months after the death of the Prophet, his wife, Lady Fatima Zahra, passes away. And then he is now placed at home, exiled in his own community, and relegated to the sideline. And it is only the last few years of his life that he is now able to take charge of the Muslim Ummah, take his proper place in the community of the Prophet of Allah. But even in that time, Amirul Mu'mineen faced one battle after another, until the time comes that Amirul Mu'mineen asks Allah in public. He says, "Oh Allah, either take me away from these people and replace me with someone who is going to be harsher on these people, or replace these people and give me a people who are better than they are." Imam Ali, in other words, was asking Allah for his own death. And Amirul Mu'mineen, on a night like this, it is said, was preparing himself and his family for his final moments and his final days. It is said that during the month of Ramadan, Amirul Mu'mineen would not eat much. On a night like this, he was staying in the house of Kulthum. His daughter would bring him just a little bit of food to eat. And yet, as soon as he ate his first morsel or his first few bites, it is said that Amirul Mu'mineen took his hand away and did not take another bite. Lady Kulthum, the beloved daughter of the Imam, it is said, looks to the Imam and says, "Oh, my father, is the food not appropriate? Is there anything wrong with my table spread?" The Imam says, "No, that is enough. That is all I want to take on a night like this. I want to spend this night in worship of Allah." There was a different feeling to the Imam on the 19th of Ramadan. It is said that Amirul Mu'mineen every once in a while would look out into the heavens, looking for certain signs that the Prophet of Allah had told him about. And on a night like this, he saw those signs. It is said that when the night would progress and the dawn would get closer, Amirul Mu'mineen prepared himself to go out towards the masjid. And on one moment, when he was exiting the house of Lady Kulthum, it is said that maybe his clothes were stuck to a part of the door. He wrapped his clothes tight. He prepared himself. And he says, "Ushdud hayazimika lil maut, fa innal maut laqika." The Imam is preparing himself for the ultimate moment and the ultimate demise. Prepare yourself. Make yourself strong, because death will meet you. وَلَا تَجْزَعْ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ إِذَا حَلَّ بَوَادِيكَ. And do not fear death if it comes into your life, if it alights in your valley. It is said that Amirul Mu'mineen goes out towards the masjid, and he begins to wake up each of the individuals who were inhabiting the masjid on that night, telling them to prepare yourself for the salat of Fajr. It is said that Amirul Mu'mineen goes now and he stands in front of the masjid. And now he begins to recount and call to his Lord. He is now worshipping Allah until the time of the dawn comes, and Amirul Mu'mineen gives the adhan and he prepares the rest of the worshippers for salat, including the person who was going to assassinate the Imam. When the Imam stands for prayer, it is said that Ibn Muljam, he comes and he draws his sword, that sword that was filled with poison, that was quenched and placed in that poison. He raises his sword and he brings it down upon the head of Amirul Mu'mineen. Imagine this scene, brothers and sisters. When the Muslims are now standing in prayer, Amirul Mu'mineen himself has now been struck. If it were us, we would fall in agony and pain. We would try to defend ourselves. And yet Amirul Mu'mineen, who was waiting for this moment, he says, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah. By the name of Allah and by the religion of the Prophet of Allah, Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. I have become successful in my life. That path that the Prophet had set for me, I was able to reach that final goal that I had set. This is a man who had prepared himself his entire life for this final moment. He takes a piece of the dust from the earth. He says, Minna khalaqnakum wa fiha nu'idukum وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى. Allah says, we have created you from this dust, as Amirul Mu'mineen is wiping his own head. And we will return you back onto this dust. And then at another moment, you will rise again. He is thinking about the hereafter. Brothers and sisters, the Muslims are now mourning this moment in the life of Amirul Mu'mineen. Their Imam, their Khalifa has been struck, this mortal blow. And many of the Muslims are now surrounding Amirul Mu'mineen. As Ibn Muljam is trying to escape from the masjid, they go and they arrest him. And now they're trying to help Amirul Mu'mineen rise up. They are mourning the mortal blow of their Imam. But it is not just they who mourn Amirul Mu'mineen, even the heavens and the earth. The angels of Allah, they as well mourn Amirul Mu'mineen. It is said that in this moment, the angels themselves call out, Tahaddamat Wallahi Arkanul Huda. By Allah, the foundations of hidayah and guidance, they are now crumbling. وَانْتَصَمَتْ أَعْلَامُ التُّقَى. And even the very banners of taqwa and consciousness of Allah have been decimated and have been destroyed. وَانْفَصَمَتْ الْعُرْوَةُ الْوُثْقَى. And that firm handle of Allah has been taken away from humankind. It is only a matter of hours and days that Amirul Mu'mineen is going to leave this earth. The greatest man after the Prophet of Allah will reach his martyrdom. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ.
Brothers and sisters, that concludes our program downstairs. If you could please kindly make your way upstairs to join the Urdu program. And bear in mind, as soon as the Majlis ends upstairs after Matam, we will have the Amal. The Qur'ans and Turbas will be distributed. So, please just go ahead and start forming lines after the Majlis. Thank you.